You know, we often look at human behavior, especially when it goes way outside the lines of, well, law and what society accepts.
Hmm.
Today, we're looking at a life lived entirely in that space. Someone deep inside, organized crime violence, betrayal, and then eventually cooperating with the very authorities he spent his life fighting.
Yeah, it's really a story about choices, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the consequences that just spiral outwards. It makes you think about what drives someone down that kind of path.
It seems his path started pretty young, with street gangs, the Rampers, I believe. Some petty crime early on.
That's right. That's off to the starting point. But the real shift was connecting with the Colombo family. An associate brought him in.
And what was the appeal there? You hear about this a lot.
Well, it's often that sense of belonging,
Yeah.
protection. In a dangerous world, that feels like a powerful offer, almost like a substitute family.
A twisted version of it, maybe.
Exactly. It can be incredibly seductive, creating this loyalty that's really hard to break, even when things get brutal.
So his first role was as an associate in the Colombo family. What did that involve?
Basically, the grunt work initially. Larceny, hijacking, armed robbery, just immersed in crime from the get-go.
And there was this one incident pretty early on, right? At a washing machine factory. It sounds like it was a real turning point.
Oh, absolutely. That incident really shows the kind of casual brutality that can take hold. Violence becomes almost normal.
What happened exactly? Sounds grim.
There was an assault on the owner. He was ordered to retrieve the man's ear as proof. Things went wrong. He lost his own finger accidentally.
Okay.
But instead of getting in trouble, the reaction from a Colombo captain was positive. Like it showed toughness.
Wow. So extreme violence becomes a way to move up, a badge of honor almost.
Precisely. It's a completely inverted value system. What's horrifying in our world is a positive trait in theirs. It marks you out.
It really underlines how detached from normal society these groups become.
Totally. Their whole moral compass is just
Mhm.
different. Actions that we'd see as appalling become metrics for worth, for potential.
It's strange, though, because around the same time, he was also involved in picketing the FBI, part of that Italian-American Civil Rights League thing.
Yeah, it's a fascinating contradiction.
How do you square that? Protesting the FBI while actively breaking major laws.
It speaks to how they see themselves, I think. They often have their own code, their own sense of grievance. They might genuinely feel persecuted by the system, even while, being deeply involved in crime. It's kind of compartmentalization.
Right. Then came the first murder. What were the circumstances there?
It was driven by perceived danger. Another associate was having an affair with a superior's nephew. That kind of thing could bring heat, cause problems. It was seen as a threat to the internal order.
So he was ordered to take care of it.
It seems he took the initiative, or at least acted decisively, and he described this unexpected feeling afterwards, a sense of power.
Is that common, that reaction?
It can be. Taking a life is obviously a profound act, and for some, especially in that context, it can create this dangerous feeling of control, pushing them further down that path. It's definitely a documented psychological effect in some cases.
And far from being a negative, this act actually boosted his standing.
Absolutely. It earned him respect within the Colombo family, led to more opportunities, more trust, if you can call it that.
Some more crime?
Definitely. He continued with various activities, including running a pretty lucrative poker game that showed he could manage things, make money for the family. That's always key.
Making money and showing muscle.
That's the currency, essentially. Success is measured by earnings and the ability to enforce control.
But his time with the Colombos didn't last forever. Why the move?
Internal politics, basically. Jealousy from others in the family. Someone spread a damaging rumor.
Yeah.
It happens. So he ended up transferring over to the Gambino family.
A different family, but the same kind of work.
Pretty much. Became an associate of a Gambino captain. Still involved in crime, but also getting into some outwardly legitimate businesses, like construction and plumbing, likely as fronts or ways to launder money.
Okay, so embedding deeper. Was there trouble with the law during this period?
Yeah, there was a serious indictment, a double murder charge.
Double murder. What happened with that?
Ultimately, the charges got dismissed. There was an issue with the key witness. Something about their legal status made their testimony inadmissible.
So he walked.
He walked on those charges. But it's a good reminder of how tricky these prosecutions can be. Doesn't mean the involvement wasn't real, just that it couldn't be legally proven at the time.
Yeah.
It really highlights the challenges law enforcement faces. Getting solid evidence, reliable witnesses, it's tough.
Life as a made man, a soldier in the Gambino family must have come with even more pressure, more demands.
For sure. And it led to one of the most chilling orders.
Yeah.
He was told to kill his own brother-in-law.
His brother-in-law. Why?
Apparently, the brother-in-law was using drugs and it disrespected a superior's daughter. In that world, those are serious offenses that demand a response.
But your own family.
That's the conflict, right? He described struggling with it, but ultimately the oath he took to the Gambinos, the Cosa Nostra, came first. That loyalty code, Omertà, it trumped even blood ties.
It's hard to fathom that level of commitment to the organization over family.
It shows the absolute power of that oath. Disobeying wasn't really an option if he wanted to survive. And the way the body was disposed of afterwards, it was particularly gruesome, reinforcing that utter disregard for human life.
Did his activities stay just within the Gambino family's sphere?
No, his reach extended. He got involved in a conflict within the Philadelphia crime family, basically, a civil war there. He carried out a hit that was ordered by the commission.
The commission, so the top bosses of all the families.
Exactly. The governing body. They mediate disputes, sanction major actions, including murders, across different families. His involvement shows he was operating at a pretty high level, trusted with assignments that had wider implications.
So he's a serious player now. Was he involved in any other ventures?
Yeah, he got into the nightclub business, bought and ran a popular discotheque, another income stream, another place to operate.
But that caused problems too, didn't it?
It did. He killed someone at the club, a drug trafficker who was involved in the club's sales somehow. But the killing wasn't sanctioned by the family leadership.
He went off script.
Right. And in that world, acting without approval, especially when it comes to murder, is a huge breach of protocol. Doesn't matter who the victor is, it disrupts the internal order.
What was the fallout?
The boss was furious. It also brought unwanted attention, including an IRS investigation for tax evasion related to the club. He beat the tax rep, but it definitely caused friction.
Were there other issues? Business disputes?
Yes. Conflicts with partners came up. It got serious enough that a Gambino underboss had to step in to mediate.
So even within the criminal structure, you still need management to sort out problems.
Absolutely. They have their own ways of keeping control, resolving disputes, often involving intimidation or the threat of violence, naturally.
Around this time, the FBI was really focusing on the Gambino family, right?
Intensely. And the boss at the time, Paul Castellano, was strongly against drug trafficking, which was causing a lot of tension within the family because the drug money was just enormous.
So a split was forming.
Pretty much. A rival faction started to emerge, led by John Gotti. They were worried about FBI surveillance tapes, Castellano's leadership style, and especially his anti-drug stance, which they saw as cutting off a huge revenue source.
This sounds like the classic conflict, old school values versus the lure of drug profits.
Exactly. It's a recurring theme. And the pressure from law enforcement just raises the stakes, makes everyone paranoid.
And this paranoia and disagreement led somewhere drastic.
It led to a conspiracy to kill the boss, Paul Castellano. The motivation was partly self-preservation, fear of what Castellano might do or what the tapes might reveal, and partly ambition, a belief that new leadership was needed.
Was the subject we're discussing involved in this plot?
He was initially hesitant, apparently. Killing the boss of your own family is a massive violation of mafia rules, an unsanctioned hit, but eventually he agreed to support it.
Why the change of heart?
Likely a mix of pressure from the Gotti faction, maybe seeing which way the wind was blowing, and perhaps his own ambitions playing a role. It was a huge risk, but the potential rewards were also huge. It really shows the ruthlessness required to plot against your own boss. That's the ultimate betrayal within that structure. High stakes, constant danger.
So the hit on Castellano went ahead.
Yes, it was planned meticulously. Castellano and his underboss were gunned down outside Sparks Steakhouse in Manhattan. Our subject played a key role in the execution of the plan.
And the aftermath.
Gotti took over as boss almost immediately. And the subject we're focusing on was promoted, becoming a high-ranking figure, eventually capo, in the new Gambino regime.
So the gamble paid off, at least initially.
It did. Power was consolidated quickly. Potential rivals or loyalists to the old boss were dealt with. Standard procedure after a violent takeover like that. Ensure stability, send a message.
His rise continued even further, didn't it?
Yes. He eventually became the underboss, second in command to Gotti. But as often happens, sitting at the top brought new problems. Tension started growing between him and Gotti.
What caused the friction?
He discovered secret recordings. Tapes where Gotti was bad-mouthing him, questioning his loyalty, even suggesting plans to set him up, potentially frame him.
Betrayal again. Seems inescapable.
It really does. Trust is so fragile in that world. Even at the highest levels, maybe especially at the highest levels, you're constantly watching your back.
Did they try to patch things up?
Attempts were made, apparently, but they failed. The trust was broken. He felt deeply betrayed, disillusioned with Gotti, with the whole life, perhaps.
And that led to the most dramatic decision of all.
Yes. Faced with the likelihood of being betrayed and possibly killed by his own boss, he decided to break Omertà. He chose to cooperate with the federal government.
Turning state's evidence, an underboss. That must have sent shockwaves.
Unprecedented. Someone that high up flipping against the boss of the Gambino family. It was huge. It was pure self-preservation at that point, a gamble to save his own life. The risk of staying loyal seemed greater than the risk of talking.
What did his cooperation involve?
Extensive testimony. He confessed to numerous murders himself, detailed the inner workings of the family, and directly implicated Gotti and many others in racketeering, murder, conspiracy, everything.
Testimony like that must be gold for prosecutors, but incredibly dangerous for him.
Absolutely invaluable. It provided an insider's view like never before. And yes, the danger was immense. He became the ultimate target for anyone still loyal to the family.
Did the defense try to discredit him?
Vigorously. They painted him as a liar, a killer trying to save his own skin by betraying others. Standard defense tactics in these cases.
But it worked. Gotti was convicted.
Yes. His testimony was crucial. Gotti and others were convicted on multiple charges, largely thanks to his cooperation.
And what happened to him? What's the reward for that kind of betrayal and cooperation?
He received a relatively lenient sentence compared to the life sentence he likely faced, or the death sentence from the mob. And he entered the witness protection program.
A new identity, a new life.
Supposedly. But witness protection comes with its own immense challenges, cutting all ties, living in secrecy, constantly looking over your shoulder in a different way.
Did that work out for him? Did he stay out of trouble?
No, it seems he really struggled with life in the program, found it dissatisfying, maybe missed the old life, the power, the money, despite everything.
So he left the program?
Eventually, yes. And perhaps inevitably, he fell back into crime, started dealing ecstasy.
After everything, back to crime.
It's a stark reminder of how hard it is to truly escape that life, how ingrained those patterns can be. The pull is strong.
And he got caught again.
He did. Investigated, convicted for drug trafficking, and received a long prison sentence this time.
So more prison time. Where is he now?
He was eventually released, but he's on lifetime parole now, constantly under supervision.
What a life. From street kid to underboss, countless acts of violence, betrayal on both sides, cooperating with the feds, witness protection, then back to prison.
It's an extraordinary trajectory, and it really cuts through any romanticized ideas about organized crime you might get from movies.
Yeah, the reality seems far grimmer. Constant fear, brutality, betrayal.
Exactly. The violence is real. The consequences are devastating, both for those inside and their victims. There's no glamour in it, just a cycle of destruction.
So the final picture is a life largely spent behind bars or defined by crime, even after trying to get out through cooperation.
Pretty much. A life marked by extreme choices and inescapable consequences. It leaves you wondering, as you said, about the nature of that world and the near impossibility of truly leaving it behind once you're that deep in.
It certainly makes you think about the cycles of violence and the difficulty of escape. A sobering story.
It really is. It underscores the brutal reality versus the myth.
Yeah.
And the lasting damage inflicted by that life.